right, enough about the European Super League. Bringing it back to England. I've been watching some videos this week, and I got watching one, which is when we got knocked out of Euro 2012.
What was that? Italy?
Against Italy. Pirlo's little dink, I believe, the penalty.
Her heart getting pissed.
So Joe Hart, Joe Hart had some bad tournaments. When you watch back, he made some mistakes in the past for England.
Wait, did he actually have any mistakes in that game? Though?
No, but do you remember when, I think it was the next tournament against Wales, the Bale free kick he conceded? I was watching that back. That was awful that he conceded that, but I'm getting sidetracked anyway. I was watching the Euro 2012. The reaction piece had Southgate as a pundit.
This is ITV when they were
ITV, in the immediate aftermath when
the
England
good old
got
days.
knocked
The
out.
good old days.
Was it Pugach?
It was no, it wasn't
Pugach. Old Pugach.
Pugach.
Whoa, Pugach was still at Shy TV back then.
Wait, was it not Adrian Childs?
No, he was well beyond by then.
Adrian Childs, he was off drinking somewhere else. But,
Yo, you lot
so wait, who was it? It was Keane.
It was Keane.
Richard's not anywhere to be seen.
And Matt Smith. This guy used to live
a
minute from my house. He lived next to Lambeth
No
Park.
one gives a shit, bro. Shout
out to Matt Smith.
Then there was
Wait, who the fuck's Matt Smith?
Carragher, just a presenter.
Carragher was there
Carragher as well. So this was
Matt Smith, Roy Keane, Carragher, like one of the first gigs he got.
Gigs.
One of the first
Don't
gigs.
abuse anyone, mate. I'm fucking
and then Southgate. But what was interesting was the stuff Southgate was saying. So this is when he was in his FA development role, right? And he was talking about one of the reasons we got knocked out was because we don't have technical enough players. We don't have players who can control game.
I remember when I was a kid, I was at like the national school, if you like, Lily Shore, an FA thing, and it's the same things have been getting said for so long, and it's like we say the same arguments, the same things every time they go out. But when's it ever going to change? What will change it? I mean, you're involved with the FA, and we're changing this with the kids' smaller side pitch. Do you think that will make a change for when we go into a tournament like that? Well,
it won't make a change for 2 years' time, because you've got to start working on kids of 5, 6, 7 years old so that they come through. You can make short-term changes to the way that some of the junior international teams play, but the fundamental skills and game awareness and things, they've got to be embedded in 15, 16, 17-year-olds. Yeah. The academies, the level of coaching's got to be better throughout the game. We ask England managers, we sack England managers, but they can only play with the group they've got. And I think with the group we had this time, we were never going to outplay teams.
Yeah, but
no matter what system we played.
We're talking about.
Don't you think we overhyped the Premier League a bit too much?
Absolutely, of course.
You know, and we equate that with England. And that's,
yeah, we do.
And they're not the same thing at all.
And the reality is, the creative players, the goal scorers in the Premier League, are predominantly.
But to me, England still underperform.
So, the creative players are predominantly
and the goal scorers
are
predominantly foreign players.
Who's top of the assists and goals this season?
Well,
for both?
Kane.
Grealish is under there.
Well, yeah, he's been out for 2 months. He's been out for 2 or 3 months. He's still
Grealish
projected the second most chances.
Per 90.
You've got players like Foden. In terms of young players, Foden.
He's one goal contribution behind De Bruyne for City this season.
Sterling, Rashford,
so that is no
Mount.
longer the case.
No, even Calvert-Lewin's bagged. How many goals has he got this season?
Calvert-Lewin's struggling a bit though, isn't he?
Yeah, but how many goals has he got in all competitions?
Yeah, no, I think about 30. Well, in all competitions.
Right, but we're talking about. I mean, back then at that tournament, I think it was Andy Carroll and I'm pretty sure Welbeck were the striking options, for example. Compare the amount of goals, Calvert-Lewin's got. I still rate, even if he's not getting injured 24/7, Ings, like last season, he'd get a lot of goals himself. If only we can get Vardy out of retirement. But, the creative players, the numbers they've got in terms of assists, and more so, what he was saying after that was we can't control games. We haven't got these creative, these technical players. It's not just that they're getting high numbers of goals and assists. We've got players that can keep the ball and can control games. We should be getting players out there who can actually keep possession.
So is your point that now that point is now wrong for England these days? We have got the players.
Yeah, when you look at the Premier League, the best league in the world, most of the creative players, the goal scorers in the league, are English now. More so than any other country. It's not all Brazilians or all Spaniards. You have those littered around, but it is now predominantly English players playing at the highest level. And going into this tournament, we'll have more goals and assists between our attacking players than we've ever had.
Well, when you said more than any other country, you meant for the Premier League,
yeah,
right?
In the Premier League. But I'm saying back then you would have looked and there would have been more Frenchmen getting goals or English players. Now it's
which was the point Southgate was making.
So you're saying Southgate's almost gone back on his word?
I think he's gone back on his word when I did a bit more reading about there was this thing that he devised. What he didn't devise, it was Ashworth who came into his role afterwards when he moved into the England role. This England DNA. about technical players and about getting all your best players in a team. If you've got these technical players, you need to get them all on the same pitch and things like that. It's further to what he was alluding to there. But I feel like Southgate at the moment, he's becoming more negative. If you compare his team now to the past tournament, it's more negative. At least at the last tournament, when he played 5 at the back, he had Ali and he had Lingard in 3 roles in midfield. Now we have five players in defence and then 2 holding midfielders. We've got 3 stranded on their own up front. We're not getting these technical players in, and we're not going to be able to control possession and get our best players into a team with that formation.
I mean, as much as I do agree, and I'd love to see us fitting more into the team, and I don't want to see 5 at the back and 2 holding. I do think though we're in a transition period, so I wouldn't be as critical. I'd say the aim wasn't it for that this DNA.
This England DNA was to win the World Cup.
The next World Cup. So I'd say this might be a bit of a transition tournament as the likes of Grealish, Foden, and I'd even say Saka and these technical players as they I'm not sure they're quite ready to dominate English football yet. As in, I think they're very close.
You mean like for the national team?
For the national team. As in, we're only just starting to talk about Foden being in the starting 11. Like, next year, he'll have had another year, he'll be another year older. I'd personally give Southgate more time.
But I don't think he's even implementing, when he talks about this possession-based style of playing things, the way we keep possession is boring. We only keep it by playing it backwards and sideways. And that's what I'm worried about, that when we go into these tournaments, we'll be passing the ball backwards and sideways just like we always do. And in a game when we might win through a few set pieces, but when we go 1-0 down, then what do? Can we turn up the tempo and actually start playing 1-2s and winning free kicks and getting in behind people?
Sure.
And then you'll start seeing that this whole controlling the game with 2 holding mids just passing it round side to side, it's not going to work at that point.
I also think if we are playing conservatively during a transition period, so we get to a point where players are, at a level where they can control a game, why don't we do that early on? I just feel it's a bit of a waste of time. Why don't we let them make mistakes early on internationally, but just get them regularly playing where they need to be on the front foot in the games? So by the time it gets to the World Cup, then
they're used to playing that.
They've had 2 years of experience of trying to play attacking, exciting football as a team.
But to be fair, from what I've seen of England youth teams, other than the ones managed by Bothroyd, obviously, I watched a bit. We watched the Under-17 World Cup final back in the day when they won the World Cup. I think you were at mine watching that, right?
You forced me.
Yeah. Foden, I think, got man of the match and scored a few goals. Hudson-Odoi was playing. Sancho was already playing for Dortmund, so he got pulled away from the tournament. It was like this golden generation of young players, and they played really good football. It was the Swansea manager, the current Swansea manager, and they played good football. And they were against Spain. I think it went 2-0 down. They ended up blitzing them. They absolutely blitzed them, by the end of the game. And they played good football.
I guess, for me though, I think you need to be more pragmatic when it comes to top class international football. To ask England to dominate possession and to dominate the rest of the nations, I just don't think it's realistic at this point. And I can see why.
No, but I think why not at this point? Because most countries are at their lowest. Germany aren't in a good way. Spain aren't in a good way. It's just not the way international
football goes. No one in the modern era dominates international football.
That's not true. That's not true.
It is true. You look at Spain. When they won the World Cup, they won every match 1-0. They didn't blow away teams.
Yeah, but they will control it. But the point is that they'd go 1-0 up and they'd then control the game with technical players.
England have years of failure to make up for. I see this tournament as an opportunity, but also as a bit of a transition, and I want to give it time. And I think once these players establish themselves more into the team, we'll then see more of the football that we want to see. I don't expect that this Euros, and I think if you're expecting to fit all those players in and expect to blow away the nations in this year's Euros, I think that's just too much.
No. I think that's unrealistic, but I support Liam's point that it doesn't necessarily have to be blowing teams away 3 or 4-0. It's just controlling the game. I'd want us to be at the front foot of every game when we play teams. And if you look at the teams we've played in the past 2 years, we've rarely played top teams. We've been playing like these mid-Polands and like Andorras or, Switzerlands and whatnot, and getting like a 1 or 2-0 from there. We should be controlling those games. We are a lot better than the sides.
No, but even when you're playing a team like Italy or Spain, if you look at their starting 11, I don't see why. If you play an England team and you've got technical players like Foden, like Grealish, Sancho, Sterling, Mount, you could have Bellingham, Henderson and the players in the attacking players got in defence who are also good technically. Like Luke Shaw's good technical play. You could have Trent playing Reece James. You've got and obviously Kane. You've got a full team of players that are top players and used to playing for top teams that could control a game. They're not taught to play in that way, but why could they not go 1-0 up against Spain or Italy and just keep the ball?
Yeah, most
why
of
is that
these players
something we
have
just
the
think we
mentality
cannot do?
already. Like, I don't understand that argument at all as well. Like, these players play for top clubs. They're expected to do that at club level.
They used to do it. Someone like Foden and Stone, they used to that at City. They blow teams away and they passed all their technical players. Grealish is a technical player. Mount. Those players are capable of keeping the ball and managing a game, but in a more offensive way, where we don't just have two holding mids who pass it backwards and sideways all the time. You can keep the ball in the opponent's half. It's a bit like what Croatia did to us at the last tournament. They played with us, and it was mostly just Modric and Brozovic and a few technical players in midfield. And they were winning, and then they just passed the game out, but in our half, and we couldn't get near them. Triangles, little passes. We can do that. I don't know why we can't. Why we just think that's impossible for us to do.
No, I'm not saying, I want to see that eventually. I'm just saying give it a bit more time for these players that you just mentioned.
But I'm just saying,
instill more into the first 11.
Given that Southgate was part of this whole England DNA thing, and it's something England have achieved a lot at youth level, since that was brought through, and so it must be working to an extent. I just feel maybe he's going back on his word a little bit now, that he's now playing this 5 at the back and he's playing 2 slightly less technical holding mids in front of that as well. He's gone away from it. Like I said, even at the last tournament, he did have the 1 holding mid midfield and he had Lingard and Ali in those free roles. If you had Foden and Grealish now in those free roles, the team would work so much better. They would be able to keep the ball. They would win free kicks. I wouldn't mind seeing that formation and those guys having the free roles. I just think Ali and Lingard... They got away with it last tournament.
What's your feelings on Lingard again?
Well, I think we all know my feelings on Lingard, but he had a chance at the last tournament. They both did, and especially in the Croatia game, our midfield went missing. As the tournament went on, they never got on the ball. They never carried the ball. They weren't linking with each other, and that was the main downfall for me. Most of our goals were from set pieces.
In the World Cup?
Yeah, I really think that was the main downfall. Now the team is more defensive now with those 2 holding mids. I think you need these technical players in there. That's what the England DNA says. You get your best players in there. We can have technical players in midfield and start dominating teams. We have to start doing it now.
It's annoying. I think his biggest downfall is his lack of trust in the defenders that we have. We have good
that's
defenders.
why he plays 5 at the back.
And then,
apparently.
I will always mention the Kyle Walker at right centre back because it was just an awful decision. And I don't know how he can
mention. No, we haven't. And that is the thing. Like, as a freaking 3 Lions TV.
We're going to actually put some points across that, our
Please,
beliefs.
I'm a City fan. I like Walker, and I really would have him as maybe even our first choice right back. He should not play as a right centre back under any circumstances as part of a back 3.
My opinions of Walker is he shouldn't be playing at all as well. He's an absolute pigeon at the best of times, let's be honest. But
I thought it was a seagull. What is it?
Pigeon.
Or Omid Jalili. I don't know which one is he?
He is a pigeon. He's Omid Jalili and he's Adam Jamili, that sprinter guy. I'm telling you.
To be fair,
he's all of those
I see why
things.
Guardiola picks him now. He's
Honestly,
versatile.
the best thing he ever did.
He's versatile.
He's a comedian and he flies. And he's 2 birds.
No, but that's what I'm saying. No,
2 birds.
That's the only
I'm not
thing.
talking
That's the
about
only
gigs.
credit you can give him. The best thing he ever did was he shat in Ashley Young's mouth a few years ago. Other than that, that's the only time he's ever found a target with a cross. But honestly,
Wait, did you hear Ashley Young try to deny it?
To be
fair, I don't think it actually was
happened.
Wait, what did he say it was again?
He said it was a bit of spit that came at the perfect point at which the
his spit.
So the poo actually went well beyond his face, but then as it looked,
so there was poo, and then it was his
spit.
spit.
No. This story makes no sense. He could have easily just said there was no pigeon and poo.
No. There was seagull shit heading in his direction.
Yeah, apparently there was seagull shit, and then as he turns, it's the spit in his mouth.
But in the video, all you hear is just some.
All you hear.
All you see is just some.
Wait, how closely were you watching this video?
No, you don't hear it.
You hear the seagull actually fine. You listen closely.
Take that, Young.
And this is Walker as well, is it? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say we've got a bit sidetracked here.
People saying he's a right centre back. He's not.
Yeah.
And he's a mistake.
I've never heard anyone say.
Oh, I've heard plenty of people say they like him because of his pace.
Yeah,
but why a right centre back would you need pace? Well, if you've got 3 defenders, why would you need pace at centre back?
Well, I agree. And
I get it when you're playing as a 4 and you need 2 centre backs and you're playing out the back. I get it. But when you're 3, you have enough defensive
Yeah,
cover.
and it makes the most of his worst trait, which is his concentration. He'll always switch off at least once, and that's why I don't trust him there.
Yeah.
He's done it in the past for
We
England.
were watching the World Cup.
He did against Tunisia,
the
elbow to give him that penalty.
Croatia was it, and it then disrupts the back two. So then Stones and him were out of position. So when Croatia scored the winner, knocked us out, made me cry in front of my dad. Fucking unbelievable. Those was them two because they're both out of position.
Yeah,
Do not
and he was
play him
also
as a
at fault
right
against
centre-back.
Iceland. I'm just saying that goal they got when they knocked us out, he was not following the runner, left him in 5
So
yards.
what do you think that thinking is with Southgate? Because we've talked a lot about the whole England DNA, we've touched upon the creative players and what we have, and then he has his mishandling of the defenders we have, you know? He's dropped Trent, which I guess, you know, he's had a bad season, but he is still one of the best young right-backs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
someone would change the game. You know, we have centre-backs that we could choose from other than fucking Dyer and Mings.
I know, Dyer.
And Cody.
And
Cody
Cody,
should be
you
in
know?
there. Anyway, it should be Konsa and Tamori.
It should
Talking
be.
about players, you know, young
They're
players
really
who are
now
going to be.
And Duncan Tarkowski.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I like those guys as well. But in terms of building for the future, Konsa and Tamori, they're 23 years of age each. Tamori's gone on loan to AC Milan. They love him there. Konsa's been amazing this season.
I'm sure he still has them in the corner of his eye, just to see how they're doing. I just feel
Maybe he should have called them up before.
I just feel
Or
Tarkowski
Konsa
and
anyway.
Dunk specifically should have been called up.
They deserve more of a chance.
They're experienced
No, I
centre backs
do
that
agree.
play very well, and they play better than fucking Dyer and Mings. I'm sorry, they make too many mistakes.
True. Yeah. Okay, so focusing on the positives, players on form. You know, unfortunately, I was watching the Villa game and Foden was killing it again, as he
Unbelievable.
always does against us.
Every time against Villa, and he really is starting to dictate games. He is.
That's
now-
the main thing, because previously when people were saying, I think people were on the Grealish bandwagon before he got injured, and they were really thinking he was going to be the saviour, and people have gone that direction with Foden a little bit now. Whereas it feels like you're scaring me here. What is these hands
I'm
up,
assuming it's
bro?
on 9%, right?
Yeah.
You're just scaring me. Put those hands down, bro.
It's like Gerpal.
But Foden, yeah, I always felt like he was complimenting the top players at City, but he wasn't necessarily running the game. Against us, he was your best player by far. Had us on strings, and he started to turn up, especially after the Liverpool game when he was your best player.
Yeah, he did. I mean, best player really on the pitch at Dortmund.
He's now and he's keep. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was him turning up in the Champions League. Probably over both legs. The first leg, his
Scoring 2
finishing was a
goals.
little poor, but he was your most creative player. And the second leg, what
out of
finish!
the box. So yeah, I mean, and I still think it's a lot to ask. He's 20 to ask him to, but I do think he is earning a place in the first team.
And I would still say, if he's fit, Grealish is still the player that we should be pinning our hopes on. People are forgetting about him. He will take the
Grealish
initiative.
jar. We need
No,
this jar,
I'm telling you, man. People are.
At the moment,
I'm not having
at the
this, that
moment,
people are so-
have you seen the odds? Lingard is favourite to make the squad more than Grealish.
I'm confident. I saw how Grealish was chatting to Southgate at the Villa City game. He had a bit of confidence. They know. He's in the squad now. All the England players from the camp. If you hear them speak, they all say Grealish is the best in training. They know he's the best. They know he's levels above.
Who said
I
that?
agree.
Because all I heard was Saka.
Calvert-Lewin said it. They were asking. They had an interview. Maybe we'll put up
yeah,
the
the
video.
almighty Calvert-Lewin.
No, they were asking who's the best. He's like, Grillo. Grillo's just so good, man. And he was saying all this stuff. He's just so calm, and when he gets on the pitch, he just does what he wants, and blah blah blah. Saka, the minute he was asked, he's like, yeah, Grealish is the best. Trippier today put up like these boys are special. Put it on Twitter. It was Grealish and Foden. Picture them in training.
Okay, now
I'm
I'm
telling these
going to
guys.
invest in the jar. The jar needs to be.
Well, all I'm saying is
No, I get it,
Grealish
I get it.
he's the more experienced player.
Yes,
he's
he is.
used to what he's done at Villa, captaining us, bringing us up, and keeping us up. What is a pretty poor team. He's used to responsibility. Foden is this young player. He's got a higher ceiling. I'll admit that. Foden is. I've always said to my parents, he's a generational player. I keep saying it to my dad and getting rinsed for it. He is generational, and he's shown that he's like one of the best 20-year-olds in the world right now. But he's not ready to have the pressure of the nation weighing him down. I don't want that on his shoulders. But I'm telling you, Grealish will be able to take the pressure.
But that day will come, and that will come maybe the next 2 or 3 years.
There was a conversation about form. Grealish is injured. Another player that's come back from injury and is already looking pretty tasty is Sancho. And there were talks Neville and Carragher both
left him out of the squad.
Sancho.
But that is some Prem bias right there of people
But
that just
freaking let's bring
just
Neville back
forgot.
to earth.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
fucking hell,
before
no
his whole
Sancho.
European Super League and winning me back over that, he was chatting some nonsense. He put Greenwood in there. He said Maguire being injured will be a bigger.
Actually, Greenwood's hit a bit of form.
No, I like Greenwood.
Can I just say Greenwood instead of Calvert-Lewin form? But maybe that's another video. But anyway,
Greenwood doesn't play up front enough.
But then you need a backup striker for Kane. Who would that be?
What, Fraudford.
Fraudford?
He doesn't play up front.
Wait, is that, I thought Fraud was Pickford.
No, let's pick Fraud.
I'll pick Fraud.
Come on, keep with it. But no, Sancho, yeah, he got back from injury, he played 20 minutes the other day, a dirty nutmeg, 2 big chances created. And before he got injured, he's been out for 2 months nearly now, he was on some serious form. This year, he was on some mad form. I still think, not just that he should be in the squad, there's an argument he should be starting as a more, when we're talking about this, wanting to keep possession and everything, he's better than Sterling and he's better than Rashford.
At the moment, I was, again, City
Not full
fan.
stop, I didn't get to finish.
Sorry.
No, continue.
Sterling, though,
Continue.
Sterling does not earn he is out of the first 11 in my opinion. I just want to put that in there.
At this moment in time.
There are Foden, Sancho, they're ahead of him. Grealish, they're ahead of him at my point. He's not had a good enough season.
No, he's not had a great season. And then there's Rashford, who's a bit of a weird one because he's had a good season in terms of his goals and assists, but for me he still loses the ball a lot. Yeah. And this is why I lean more towards Sancho. I want to go towards a more technical England team that can keep possession, the likes of Foden, Grealish, and I put Sancho in that category. They would link and move really well and keep the ball. Rashford, he's got so much ability, but he does lose the ball quite a lot, and that's the reason why maybe as an impact sub I'd bring him on. But I'm not sure I'd want to start him. He disrupts the flow a little bit.
Yeah,
I'd still rather those other guys.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Anyone else on?
I mean, what a great option to have. Rashford on the bench. Come on,
exactly. I wouldn't like to see Rashford starting. I know that seems really harsh because he's got 10 goals.
To be honest, I wouldn't think it's that big big of a change. I do say even if Rashford were to start ahead of Sancho on the left, I still think we should be winning that game. And I still think
it's just good to have these options. And a lot of it is you've got so many of these options rather than other nations. You've only got maybe 3 good players and they have to play them even if they're out of form.
Yeah.
You get to choose who's on form. It's competition for places. They all have to be right up for it to earn that place in the England team.
So and I just want to end it with one other piece of news. Probably the biggest England news that hit this week was the fact that Wembley are getting another match in the Euros. And that seems like, maybe something that's not that big a deal, but I think it contributes to what I think is actually turning into one of the reasons why I think England have a really good chance of winning this Euros. Because at the end of the day, the football is likely to be cagey. It's going to be here or there. It's going to be a bit of luck. And you want things to go your way. So for me, there's going to be, think about the hype, especially if lockdown ends. And we're getting full stadiums when every other country is getting either no fans.
It wouldn't be full stadiums, was it? It'd be like 10,000, 20,000.
After the 21st of June, the
June.
magical date, there will be potentially full crowds.
But only for us.
Only for us.
No one else is getting these full crowds. And we've now got an extra date of full crowds.
And even if it is partial crowds, there's going to, no other, that'll be more than basically any other country is getting. So it's almost even better than a home tournament. And there's going to be the hype around the end of lockdown, people in fan parks watching big screens. So for me, I think people are forgetting. Think about the World Cup. There's this mad, it's coming home goes to top of the charts. There's this massive clamour, national clamour. Your sister, who never talks about football, not your one particularly, but general people.
What are you talking about?
They don't chat football from one year to the next, and then suddenly they're like, this team's a good looking.
Guys, wrap it up now.
So I think
there's reason to be positive.
Wrap it up.
Gives us more of a chance. We'll be there interviewing fans after the game when England have. Dicked, who is it down? Czech Republic. When we've won 4-0 and Grealish has bagged a hat-trick of assists, we will be there to get the opinions.
So it doesn't stop, yeah.